Now, this game came out in 2018, but somehow it runs worse than some modern open world games. That's because there's no FSR, no frills, no upscaling, it's just raw performance and it shows. Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're testing Darksiders 3 on the Steam Deck, which is a third-person action game where you play as Fury, one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. You're on a quest to hunt down the 7 deadly sins, and without further ado, let's check out how it runs on the Steam Deck. Now, Darksiders 3 is the third entry in the Darksiders series, and this time you play as Fury, which is the no-nonsense sister of War and Death. The game shifts away from the more action-adventure, Zelda-inspired design of the first 2 entries, and leads into a darker, more Souls-like formula, except the combat is a bit easier. Now, this introduces tighter combat, dodge-based mechanics, and a more open, interconnected world instead of linear levels. And the core gameplay loop is all about exploration, combat, and progression. You pretty much hunt down the 7 deadly sins across the post-apocalyptic Earth, unlocking elemental forms along the way that let you traverse new areas. One form lets you walk on lava, another lets you magnetize to walls, and each one comes with its own combat style and ability upgrades. The tone is heavy, mythological, and full of over-the-top voice acting, with environments that range from decayed cities to eerie catacombs. It's not as punishing as Dark Souls, but it's definitely more methodical than the first 2 games. Think of it as a combination of God of War and Metroid, with a splash of edgy comic book energy. Before I continue on with the performance, I just wanted to let you guys know that I have created a Steam group and a Steam curator page where I share all of my recommended settings for these games that I review, and I post written reviews. So it would be really great if you check that out. I'll post links in the description. Now here's how the game actually performs. On the lowest settings with 60 FPS cap, it mostly holds 60 in combat, but it can dip to 45 in some busier areas or areas where there's a lot of light. Now on medium settings, again, it runs near 60, but it is unstable. You can expect stutters, and mostly it will be around 55 and not 60 locked. Now the settings that I found work the best are medium settings with a 45 FPS cap, and this is probably the best experience. It is pretty smooth and consistent. However, even on these settings, you can sometimes dip below 45, which is strange, but I guess this is the best that we can do. Now I also tried high and epic settings, which is the ultra option, and you can definitely play on these, but you need a 30 FPS cap. However, there is an issue with these settings as well. Sometimes during cinematics, you will drop to 20 FPS, which is a bummer. Now, cinematics by default are capped at 30 FPS, but at 20 FPS they look terrible. So if you want to have the most stable experience, the most fidelity, and good cinematics, you have to cap it at high settings and don't go further than that. Now, the game looks drastically different between the settings. So on the lowest settings, there's no shadows, and it really doesn't look great. So it's not recommended to play like that, even if it gives you the most FPS. In terms of battery life, you can expect between 3.5 hours and 4 hours across all the different settings. If you cap it to 30 FPS, that will give you the most hours. But with my recommended settings, capping it to 45 FPS and settings set to medium, you can expect around 3 hours on the OLED. Now, even on the lowest settings, the game is capped at 60 FPS, so there's no option to go beyond that and have it run at 90 FPS on the OLED. It's just a hard cap. It's probably an option somewhere. If you mess with the configuration files, you can probably try to unlock that, but I haven't messed with any of the files at all. What I did try is lowering the resolution. So in some of this footage, I did try running the game at 600p, so that's 960 by 600, which is a very low resolution. But this will allow you to enable the Steam Deck's internal FSR, and it can squeeze out a few more frames. I did end up playing this on medium settings, and it gave me around 58, 60 FPS most of the time, but it doesn't look great even on the small screen. So again, my recommendation is to just stick with 800p, set it to medium settings, and enable 45 FPS cap. Now, I can't really show you footage with the 45 FPS cap because when I record from my external capture card, I can't really cap it to 45 FPS. I can only cap it to 30 and 60. But rest assured that is the best possible way to play the game. Now, Darksiders 3 has full controller support and it works perfectly on the Steam Deck. Menus are all accessible, and the UI scales decently well for a handheld. There were a couple of texts that I thought were too small, but nothing too major. Now, the camera can be a little wild at times. This is just standard for these type of games from that year. It really is nothing game breaking. Now the controller mapping is a bit weird, but you are able to change that. For example, you dodge with the right bumper instead of, for example, B. But this is just a personal preference and it can be changed. So final thoughts, is it worth it? Honestly, for a game from 2018, I expected better performance, but without an upscaler or high FPS cap, you're stuck choosing between visuals and stability. And that said, it looks good, plays fine, and feels pretty great at 45 FPS on medium settings. It's a solid pick if you're a fan of the series or like dark action games, but don't expect it to melt faces on performance. You can probably grab it when it's on sale, and it's gonna be a pretty enjoyable experience. That's gonna be it for this video, guys. If you found it helpful, leave a like, consider subscribing for more Steam Deck content, and hit that bell icon so you never miss an upload. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.